This is CGTN, China Global Television Network.
South Africa's COVID-19 cases surpass 500,000. Other African countries also recorded a spike in infections. Kenya reopens its airspace for international passenger flights. And DR Congo records a significant drop in measles cases as a nationwide vaccination campaign continues. Hello and welcome to Africa Live on CGTN with me, Beatrice Mrashall, in Nairobi. Also coming up on the program, South Africa's export surplus increases amid the coronavirus pandemic. Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang becomes the first African to lead a team to English FA Cup glory. Let's start in South Africa, where the number of confirmed COVID-19 cases have crossed 500,000. According to the country's health industry, the health ministry, the nation has recorded over 10,100 new infections, pushing the total tally of cases to over 503,200. The number of fatalities stand at over 8,150. The ministry also says it has managed to test over 3 million people. South Africa imposed a nationwide lockdown at the end of March to help curb the spread of the virus, but it has now eased many restrictions to boost economic activity. Just like other African countries across the continent, a large chunk of whose populations are poor and face hunger. As restrictions have eased, infections have spiked over the last 2 months. Well, let's take a look now at how the disease is affecting the rest of the continent. Africa has recorded over 929,690 cases. According to the Africa Centers for Disease Control, more than 19,690 people have died of COVID-19 across Africa. The total tally of recoveries currently stands at over 581,580. Kenya has the highest number of infections in the East African region. The government has confirmed 727 more COVID-19 infections, raising the caseload to 21,363. The Kenyan government recently reopened its airspace to international flights, a move that has raised concerns at some quarters. The Health Cabinet Secretary Mutahi Kagwe has, however, assured Kenyans that the resumption of air travel will not increase the risk of infections, as there are strong protocols in place for travelers. International flights have resumed in Kenya following the easing of movement restrictions by President Uhuru Kenyatta last month. And as CGTN's Robert Nagila reports, Saturday was a busy day at the Jomo Kenyatta International Airport.
After more than 4 months of suspended operations in an attempt to control the spread of COVID-19, Nairobi's Jomo Kenyatta International Airport resumed international flights Saturday as Kenya reopened its airspace. And it's hard to miss the new normal, as it's now referred to. The airport is littered with sanitation points, masks are now mandatory, social distancing guidelines are plastered on all surfaces, seats clearly spaced out, and security checks have been intensified. For passengers arriving into the country, a COVID certificate is mandatory.
COVID certificate on a test taken not earlier than 96 hours before flight.
Those we spoke to traveling on KQ100 to London were satisfied with measures put in place.
I'm very satisfied, especially the way they are moving the lines.
I'm confident. I'm pretty sure it's going to be okay.
By midday, traffic was steadily increasing. But it's the national carrier Kenya Airways that is breathing a huge sigh of relief. The resumption of international flights is a huge boost for Kenya Airways. The airline lost hundreds of millions of dollars when Kenyan airspace was closed and will be hoping to make up for lost time.
Since late March, when we stopped flying, up to now, we have probably lost between around about $100 million. When we project to the end of the year, based on the demand that we see today, we will lose about $400 million of revenue.
The company's laid off more than 600 employees and says it will increase traffic according to demand. In the meantime, it says it's resumed flights to 30 destinations. The airline has, however, been barred from neighboring Tanzania after the country was included in a list of countries not allowed to travel to Kenya. Flights to China and the United States are expected to resume in October. Robert Magela, CGTN, Nairobi, Kenya.
Let's now head up north, where Egypt is accusing Turkey of encroachment in its eastern Mediterranean territory. According to an advisory issued by the Egyptian government, Turkey is said to have potentially overlapped into Egypt's exclusive economic zone, which is now being termed as a violation by Cairo. The accusation has escalated tensions in the region. Cyprus and Greece have already expressed their displeasure with Turkey's economic ambitions in the Mediterranean. Turkey, on its part, says it is halting economic activities pending talks with Cairo. Turkey entered into an agreement with Libya last year, which granted it rights to explore for oil and other resources. Apart from oil, the area is also rich in hydrocarbons. Turkey's involvement in the Libyan conflict has also stoked tensions with Egypt, which is supporting Eastern Commander Khalifa Haftar. Well, let's get more on this now. And I'm joined by CGTN's Adel Mahrouri. He's in Cairo for us. And Mrashall David is also standing by for us in Istanbul, Turkey. Adel, let me start off with you because could you give us an update on the latest claims by Egypt against Turkey on the maritime border?
So basically, Egypt's concerns are not based on claims that Egypt has personally drawn on its own. Egypt has been since 1983 part and have signed the official document of the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea. And according to that, Egypt has drawn its sea borders and its economic zone, the exclusive economic zone in the Mediterranean Sea, and has informed the United Nations by that. And that's why, that's what Egypt is building its announcement, its statement against Turkey that has been released by the Egyptian Foreign Ministry. So according to Egypt, the note sent by Turkey that it will be performing seismic scanning in the Mediterranean Sea from July 21st until August 2nd, part of that area that Turkey has informed Egypt about, specifically what is called Zone 8, is within Egypt's exclusive economic rights based on that UN convention. And Egypt considers that a violation to its sovereign rights over the Mediterranean Sea and its exclusive economic zone in that area, and an area that Egypt has been also active in doing oil exploration, as it has been proven in the past years, where massive natural gas exploration has been done in the East Mediterranean Sea. And this is basically what Egypt has condemned, and it didn't actually announce any sort of movements yet, but it has sent a firm rejection to, or announced at least through its foreign ministry, that it is a violation to its sovereign rights, and Egypt will take all precautions to make sure that its rights are preserved in that area.
Well, Mrashall, what is the reaction, though, to these claims from Turkey?
Well, Beatrice, so far we don't have an official statement or reaction from Turkey, but what happened with Greece recently can give us some idea of what we can expect, because the same survey that Egypt has now given a reaction to has also drawn a lot of harsh reactions from Greece because of some conflicts with them regarding their rights in the maritime agreements in that area as well. Now, when that happened, first of all, Greece asked for support from its allies, from the EU, from the United States. The EU stepped in, Germany stepped in, and called on Turkey to suspend its plans for now. The EU said it was not helpful. The United States called for a decrease of tension in the area and also urged Turkey to suspend those explorations exploration plans in the area. So it really depends a lot on what some of the allies in the region also, how they react. And that's going to be important for Turkey, because once the US and the EU intervened, Turkey's presidential spokesman Ibrahim Kalin made a statement and said that Turkey was willing to sit at the negotiation table with Greece to discuss regional issues and to suspend its exploration plans for a while. Now, we also have another statement regarding this issue, which gives an idea of what Turkey's stance is regarding these maritime disputes. He stated that there's no legal definition regarding this issue, that international maritime laws suggested such disputes should be resolved between conflicting countries, and therefore Turkey has suggested that Turkey and Greece sit down and talk on these issues. However, it's going to be a very different situation when it comes to Turkey and Egypt, because relations are very, very different when it comes to Egypt. President Sisi, of course, for Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan, has been a critical person. So it's going to be significant to see what kind of reaction we have from regional countries, regional players in the area, from the United States as well, and also then what Turkey will decide to do. Beatrice?
Indeed, Adele, it will be interesting to see the regional reaction there, but this is also likely to escalate tensions between Egypt and Turkey. Adele, what should we expect from Cairo?
So, Beatrice, this is basically the core conflict between Egypt and Turkey. It has been reflected into political support within Egypt that we've seen. The Turkey is giving shelter and political support to the Muslim Brotherhood, a group Egypt has designated as a terrorist organization. When it goes to Libya, when both Egypt and Turkey are supporting rival sides, this is also one of the reasons or an explanation why. It's basically because of the East Mediterranean oil riches, which Turkey is not a part of so far. And basically that's because Egypt, Cyprus and the three countries, Egypt, Cyprus and Greece, basically are part of the 1982 UN Convention of the Borders of the Sea, or the Law of the Sea. And they have drawn their economic zones according to this UN Convention. However, Turkey has not signed that convention, and therefore from a legal perspective, Turkey does not recognize it. But from an international law perspective, Greece, Cyprus and Egypt all have rights in that regard. And this is why the main conflict is, because basically with that convention, Turkey is not part of the oil-rich part in the Mediterranean, and this is what something that Ankara has been pushing toward for with oil exploration. Has been the core conflict between Egypt and Turkey for that specific reason, and therefore Egypt is not willing to let go of these rights. We've seen once Egypt have seen quite a clear threat from Turkey in Libya, supporting the GNA and moving forward to, into territorial bases that comes closer to Egypt. Egypt has threatened military intervention in Libya. When it comes to this specific case, Cairo has not said, did not say it will stop Turkey from doing the seismic explorations, maybe because logistically there is really no need to it. But the foreign ministry stressed that whatever outcomes come from Turkish exploration, Cairo will not recognize it.
All right. So, Michelle, if Turkey has not signed that UN convention, what is Turkey's end game, though, and what is giving Turkey the power to issue such surveys?
Well, certainly because of these issues, Turkey found a strategic way to enter the game, in a sense, when it comes to maritime exploration. That alliance with Libya is therefore very, very critical for Turkey. It's very significant. That's why the agreement that they made, the maritime and military agreement that Turkey signed with Libya, the GNA last year, is very significant for Turkey because it gives it the power and the basic understanding that it can actually make these moves at this time. And when we're talking about the end game, yes, it's all about oil, it's all about energy, it's all about regional power at this point, because Turkey really wants to have a say in what happens in the region. It wants to be part of the negotiation table. Energy, of course, is very, very connected to power. For energy resources, we're talking financial resources here. And at this point, Turkey is very dependent on Russia and Iran when it comes to energy sources. Ankara has been stating that it needs to diversify its energy supplies. So these sources, potential resources that it can find with these explorations, is very critical for Turkey. And therefore, this step right now is very clearly what really Turkey wants to do in terms of an endgame, part of being a regional power in this region.
All right, Michelle Badavid joining us there from Turkey, and Adel Mahroui joining us from Cairo. To you both, thank you. Well, Egyptian President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi has ruled out resorting to military action to settle the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam dispute. He says negotiations are the only way to resolve the standoff over the mega dam project. Yasser Hakim has more.
Egyptian President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi has made it clear that unlike in the Libyan conflict, he will not resort to ordering military action over the GERD crisis.
I respect all points of view, but I'm telling you Egyptians, there is no military option. We are in the middle of negotiations. It's a very long process. It's a battle in itself. I assure you, we will not sign any deal that will harm us. We respect Ethiopia's need for electricity, but it should not affect our water share.
His statement came following some calls from the public seeking tougher action by Egypt if Ethiopia fills and operates the dam unilaterally.
He has dismissed the military option because Ethiopia and Egypt know the huge cost of war and the losses it will incur. We have to put this in consideration. Egypt has maintained throughout the past years that military action is out of question and it will only resort to negotiations.
But what are the cards Egypt can use now after 9 years of protracted negotiations with Ethiopia?
First, we have strong ties with many influential countries that can interfere to avoid a possible conflict by two large African countries. Then you have the Security Council, who will also try to push for a deal to be signed.
For now, Egypt is banking on diplomacy as the African Union leads talks to end the standoff. Yasser Hakim, CGTN, Cairo.
You're watching Africa Live. Still ahead on the program. Housing emergency in Brazil as COVID cases and unemployment surge. And thousands protest across Israel against Netanyahu's government.
My family has been doing this artwork for the past 600 years.
My dream is to be the leading player in Africa in the spice sector.
Nobody in the region consumes it. Even me cannot afford the vanilla cooking.
What we've created here is the elegance, the color, the celebration of life.
Well, let's head to the U.S., where coronavirus cases in the U.S. continue to rise with no signs of slowing down as fatalities reach their highest since May. The country has registered more than 1,000 deaths a day for 5 days in a row, and lawmakers are at an impasse over a relief package as jobless benefits for tens of millions of Americans expired on Friday. Toby Muse has the details.
Talks between Republicans and Democrats over a new stimulus plan have stalled. This comes amid a grim outlook for the U.S. economy. 30 million unemployed. 11% of households say they don't have enough to eat. 25% of people say they have missed a rent or a mortgage payment. Democrats want to continue to pay the $600 weekly bonus to unemployment benefits all the way through to 2021. Republicans say that's too generous, and they want to cap it at around $200 a week in order to be able to help business owners lure workers back to work. The White House said that they had offered a stopgap measure of $600 for another week as talks continued.
It surprises me that when we talk about compassion and caring about those that truly are in need, that a temporary solution to make sure that enhanced unemployment continues has been rejected not once but multiple times.
Democrats said that they will keep meeting throughout the weekend in order to try to reach a deal.
We're not close yet, but it was a productive discussion. Now each side knows where they're at, and we are going to work very hard to come to an agreement that meets the needs of the moment. We still believe, and we discussed this with them, that this is one of the greatest problems America faces, and we need to meet those needs in a very, very serious way.
Now, why is this important? Because at the beginning of this pandemic, economists and analysts praised the government and the Congress for coming together with a quick economic stimulus plan, getting money into the American consumers' pockets. And that helped stabilize an economy that was at the time hemorrhaging. With these benefits lapsing at the end of July, economists worry that tens of millions of Americans could be pushed into poverty. And that could produce ripple effects across the entire US economy that's desperately trying to claw its way out of the catastrophic drop we saw earlier this year. Toby Muse reporting for CGTN, Washington.
Meanwhile, Brazil is reporting more than 45,000 new cases and over 1,000 deaths. It is the second hardest hit country by the virus after the United States. Growing unemployment has led to a housing emergency as those who are evicted with nowhere else to turn to are squatting. Our correspondent in Sao Paulo, Paulo Cabral, visits one of these irregular settlements and now also under threat of being razed by authorities.
Just a few months ago, as COVID-19 began to spread across Brazil, this was mostly empty land, with just a few dozen shacks on its edges. Now there are 840 families living here in the area they call Jardim Julieta, in São Paulo's northern suburbs. Some 200 more families are on a waiting list, organized by occupation leaders. This is public land belonging to the city of São Paulo, but left unused for many years.
I'm working here helping other people to set up their shacks because life is hard. People need a place to live, and this one was all abandoned.
The housing deficit is an old and severe problem in São Paulo, now made worse with the rise in unemployment caused by the COVID-19 pandemic.
We have received many reports of families who were evicted because they could not pay rent, including families that were renting homes in shanty towns or even paying to live in other squatted areas. So these evictions gave rise to new occupations in the city of São Paulo.
The United Nations asked Brazil to halt all evictions during the pandemic, and here in São Paulo, prosecutors also asked the mayor for a temporary halt on evictions, including this place, Jardim Julieta. After losing their jobs because of COVID-19 lockdowns, many workers built shacks for their families here after getting evicted. But city authorities say this area has now to be cleared, ironically, for the construction of affordable housing.
A court order obtained by the city has given families here until August 7th to live willingly. Despite a risk of losing everything, many are working to quickly upgrade their wooden shacks into brick houses, in a strategy to make evicting them more difficult. This family arrived a couple of months ago after being evicted for not paying their rent. Now they are afraid to lose again the precarious roof they at least have over their heads.
Depois da pandemia, eu não achei mais serviço, né?
Since the beginning of the pandemic, I could not find work anymore. I built this with the emergency grant money paid by the government, but now that's all gone too. If they tell us to leave, where can I go with my daughters? I don't have relatives here in São Paulo to stay with.
With cases of COVID-19 still surging in Brazil, authorities continue to advise people to stay at home as much as they can. A tough challenge for those forced to live on the fringes of society and struggling to hang on. Paulo Cabral, CGTN, São Paulo.
Iran says it has arrested the head of a US-based terror group accused of a 2008 attack that killed 14 people in the southern city of Shiraz. Iran's intelligence ministry said the detainee Jamshid Shamad and his group, known as the Kingdom Assembly of Iran, planned more attacks around the country. It is not clear how he was arrested, but the US government urged Iran to be transparent and abide by international legal standards. Thousands have taken to the streets in Israel to demand the resignation of Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. Demonstrations on Saturday night erupted over Netanyahu's alleged corruption and his government's handling of the coronavirus. Local media estimate about 15,000 people gathered outside his state residence in Jerusalem. The Prime Minister called the demonstrations not to drag the country towards anarchy, violence and attacks against the police. Netanyahu is on trial for several counts of corruption, charges that he denies. It is against the police. Netanyahu is on trial for several counts of corruption, charges that he has denied. Let's now go to South Africa, where South Africa's President Cyril Ramaphosa says strategic partnerships in science, technology and innovation will play a critical role in the country's economic recovery. Ramaphosa was speaking at the National Summit on Science and Innovation in response to COVID-19 that was held virtually. CGTN's Yodisa Njamela has the details.
The conference brought together scientists, governments, business and civil society from all over the world, providing a platform for open discussion and contributing to a greater understanding of the impact of COVID-19 on society and the economy. The event highlighted health innovations and technologies, as well as social and economic sustainability during and after the pandemic. President Cyril Ramaphosa told the attendees that science, technology and innovation has proved to be an important tool for generating valuable insights and for the delivery of effective solutions. Higher Education, Science and Technology Minister Dr. Blade Nzimande delivered the president's speech on his behalf.
Science, technology and innovation are key to healthier populations, productivity and progress. It is of the utmost importance that they remain a public good. As we collectively strive to overcome this pandemic, we must share experience and expertise. We must pool resources through joint investment, data sharing, and reciprocal access to research infrastructure.
A sentiment shared by AU Commissioner Professor Sarah Anyang Agbo.
Inter-African collaboration is key if we are to win this race. Currently, a lot of work is going on continent-wide, but with minimal collaboration among our countries or researchers and among our regional economic communities.
The virtual summit was also attended by the World Health Organization's Director General, Dr. Tedros Ghebreyesus. He emphasized that innovation is only part of the answer to this pandemic.
We must all ensure that all people have access to the fruits of innovation. We must make sure that vaccines, diagnostics, and therapeutics for COVID-19 are global public goods, not another reason that more people are left behind.
All speakers at the summit roundly agreed that science, technology and innovation are not options in addressing socio-economic challenges, but are vital tools to gather insights and effective solutions. Yodisa Njamela for CGTN in Johannesburg, South Africa.
It's been 2 years since the Democratic Republic of Congo announced its 10th Ebola outbreak in the east of the country. That outbreak was declared over 2 months ago after claiming more than 2,200 lives. But a new outbreak is now raging in the northwestern province of Equator. CGTN's Chris Ochamringa has more.
The DRC's 10th Ebola outbreak was declared in the eastern province of North Kivu on August 1st, 2018. Authorities recorded over 3,400 cases and more than 2,200 deaths. The outbreak was the second largest in the world. It occurred in an active conflict zone, making it difficult for health workers to reach patients, but it was declared over on June 25th.
It's the second anniversary of the Ebola outbreak that occurred in the east of the country. We are proud that our government and international partners managed to end that outbreak. But we are now dealing with another Ebola outbreak in Equator province.
A new Ebola outbreak was declared in the northwestern province of Equator on June 1st, as the one in the east was nearing its end. It's the 11th Ebola outbreak to occur in the DRC since 1976. The disease has spread to 7 health zones with 73 cases recorded. The outbreak has occurred in a remote area with dense rainforests. Health workers say the response to the disease has been overshadowed by the COVID-19 pandemic. Chris Sochamringa, CGTN, Kinshasa, Democratic Republic of Congo.
Coming up on Africa Live. South Africa's export surplus increases despite the coronavirus pandemic. And TikTok says it is not going away, but reports it may sell its American operations as Trump threatens a ban.
Africa is the nexus of enterprise, and global business will tell you why it matters.
From the mega investment projects to multi-billion-dollar mergers and acquisitions.
Africa today collects, just in terms of revenues from taxes alone, $545 billion a year. If you take 10% of that and you devote it to the energy sector, problem solved.
All this on Global Business, weekdays at this time on CGTN.
Africa Live. Find your voice.
In what could be a silver lining for South Africa amid the current coronavirus pandemic, the trade surplus has gone up. The country's positive balance widened to $2.7 billion last month. According to the South African Revenue Services, this is the biggest surplus since 1990. The statement attributes this to a 19% surge in exports of precious metals and stones. However, imports dropped by around 18%, with imports of textiles dropping by a whopping 53%. Meanwhile, the automotive market in South Africa is slowly recovering. Automakers and dealerships were forced to close at the end of March when South Africa went into a hard lockdown. While manufacturers reopened mid-May, industry experts say it is still going to be a while before a full recovery. The sales market is, however, seeing a speedier turnaround. Here's Sumitra Naidu with that story.
The automotive industry in South Africa contributes over 7% to GDP. The sector also accounts for almost 500,000 jobs, but the industry has been taking strain due to the poor state of the economy. COVID-19 has added to the industry's woes.
The automotive sector arguably is the only success case of a proactive industrial strategy in South Africa in the last generation. The sector undoubtedly is our single most value-added export. So it's an industry with high IP, significant levels of FDI that is attracted to the country.
Car dealerships reopened in May, but people were either too scared to go out or had no money to look at a new purchase. Vehicle sales in May fell 68%.
In March, for an example, we've seen a 98% drop of vehicle sales, particularly the domestic vehicle sales in the country compared to the previous corresponding period. And that number is beginning to pick up again because obviously the economy is back online and we are able now to trade as much as possible.
While the domestic market is expected to recover this year, the export market, which fell 64% in May, could take longer.
Car sales fell by almost 31% in June. It's a massive decline. However, finance institutions say that this decline is unlikely to continue as they're seeing more applications for finance this year than they did last year.
People are buying used cars because you can get a better deal for the money and potentially pay less for a used car. What the dealerships are doing, and those that are succeeding during the lockdown and during this time, is employing strategies that are referred to as automotive digital retailing. They're upgrading their websites, putting in place technology so that consumers that are buying cars can not only apply for finance, but actually go through the journey of getting finance for the car.
The demand for new vehicles is improving. Vehicle prices rose above inflation for the first time since 2017. June consumer inflation rose 2.2%, while vehicle inflation rose 6.5%. Sumitra Nadu, CGTN, Johannesburg, South Africa.
And the coronavirus pandemic has hit hard advertisers, with traditional advertising spots becoming the major casualties. In Uganda, advertising is starting to recover as the country eases its lockdown restrictions. But the fight for advertising revenue means newspapers could lose out. CGTN's Leon Senyange reports.
A local newspaper editor picks through the month's printed papers. The past 4 months of the coronavirus lockdown have been the worst ever for this publication. A decline in advertising revenues and newspaper circulation amid the pandemic forced the paper to scale back on production.
The companies that were advertising stopped advertising because people are not working. So whom were they advertising to? And what products were they trying to put on the market? So all those things affected us. And the biggest business person in Uganda is government. Government also, for some time, stopped advertising.
Media organizations rely on local advertisers like telecoms, banking, and beverage companies as their primary revenue source. They generate close to $100 million in advertising expenditure at least every year. Despite the current dip, it's a period many hope to recover from.
There's traffic flow, there'll be more eyeballs and stuff like that, so the rates probably will go to where they were. Or if not, the rates will be almost where they were. So I think for the out-of-home business, I think business will still come back to a significant normal. But I think where things might be tough is mainly on print. The newspapers, the magazines and stuff like that.
Uganda has been easing restrictions that have allowed businesses to resume operation, creating an opportunity for spending on advertisements to increase. Local advertising agencies say there will be more business as the country opens up. But the pandemic is likely to change the advertising industry, with companies opting for inexpensive and innovative ways to spend their money. The majority of the traditional media share of advertising is done on radio and television. Print media falls further back. The pandemic, however, has forced both agencies and their clients to rethink.
We are seeing most clients now playing in the digital space more. They are spending a lot on digital. Also, during this time, we've seen that the viewership of TV has actually gone up because guys are at home. So we've seen clients who traditionally are not on TV, jumping on TV and doing animated TV to pass their message.
Uganda's television usage rose to 34% within the last 10 years and internet usage to 9% in 5 years, according to a National Information Technology survey. And with Ugandans now returning to work, access to the internet is also increasing. These are spaces advertisers are likely to focus on more in the future. Leon Senyange, CGTN, Kampala, Uganda.
Nigeria's central bank has issued a $41.2 million credit facility to maize farmers in the country. This comes after the bank placed a ban on maize importation in order to boost local production. CGTN's Kelechi Mekalam has the details.
Another planting season for maize farmer Abubakar Sabitu. He has spent the past 2 decades cultivating maize, a staple food widely consumed in Nigeria. But lots of farmers like himself haven't enjoyed favorable yields and sales. Besides contending with imports, financing has been a major challenge. Now the Apex Bank's ban on maize importation and its $41.2 million credit facility to maize farmers would help boost production.
The challenges I face every farming season is access to fertilizer, because each year we farm, we have a budget for fertilizer. But most years, there is always a hike in the price, and it affects our calculation due to the price differences. This makes us to always seek financial help, and in some cases, the fertilizer is not readily available.
If part of this money will be used to acquire tractors and some machines, that will make our work easier and encourage us to do more, and will go a long way. If I was farming 1 hectare and I now have these inputs available, I can farm up to 10 hectares.
According to Nigeria's Bureau of Statistics, maize seed import alone was over $4.6 million in the first quarter of 2019. And that's excluding other byproducts from maize running into millions of dollars. The Apex Bank hopes to stimulate economic recovery, safeguard rural livelihoods, and increase job opportunities affected by the COVID-19 pandemic.
It's the right step in the right direction. And don't forget, it's only for this season. You also go to have dry season farmers. There are also high exportable ones that we're already exporting, like sesame seed, shea butter, ginger. Those we are not even mentioned, but we are exporting those. So they require equal attention. So these ones are where Nigeria has significant comparative advantage compared to other African countries. And so we need to put resources behind those.
About 40,000 maize farmers will access the credit facility. Among other interventions, the funds would go into agro inputs like fertilizers, seeds, and agrochemicals. The farmers are expected to double their output this year, as well as provide 1.5 million metric tons of maize for animal feed. Kelechi Emekalam, CGTN Abuja, Nigeria.
TikTok says it is not planning on going anywhere after U.S. President Donald Trump threatened to ban the video sharing app. Trump says there are what he calls raging concerns about TikTok's threat to sovereignty and national security, but the company insists it is in the U.S. for the long run. CGTN's Yu Yang has the story.
TikTok's popularity is based on videos like this, and this. Its parent company, ByteDance, says it aims to show the world's creativity, knowledge, and precious life moments. But now, those precious life moments look like this.
I'm going to miss you.
The change stems from the displeasure of Donald Trump.
We're looking at TikTok. We may be banning TikTok. We may be doing some other things. There are a couple of options, but a lot of things are happening. So we'll see what happens. But we are looking at a lot of alternatives with respect to TikTok.
The U.S. president says the app could be a threat to national security. His administration says the app's Chinese developer, ByteDance, could steal U.S. users' personal data.
Only if you want your private information in the hands of the Chinese Communist Party.
But U.S. netizens seem to disagree. They've launched a hashtag called #SaveTikTok, which got nearly 700 million views. And TikTok itself said it was not planning on going anywhere. It also points out that the CEO is American and its databases are in Singapore and the US. Trump's announcement sparked a set of search for a white knight. US media outlets report that several companies are in talks with the ByteDance to buy TikTok, including Microsoft. The platform entered the US in 2018 and has over 175 million downloads, ranking the first in the Apple Store in the entertainment category. About 80 million users are sharing their videos every month. These include some US stars. Millions are waiting to see where TikTok is headed when the world's most powerful government labels it a national threat. Yu Yang, CGTN.
And we still have more news for you here on the program. Here's what's ahead. Kenya's ban on sale of alcohol in bars and restaurants frustrates consumers.
Join us in Global Business and see Africa through our eyes. The greatest journeys, the greatest sights, the greatest adventures.
Here in Qanater, this weir allows the locals to walk on water.
We're far more than just TV news. We're your passport to the wonders of Africa.
To bring you stories of struggle, survival and hope.
So let's explore. CGTN. See the difference.
Kenyans are spending the first weekend since President Uhuru Kenyatta ordered the indefinite closure of bars nationwide. This came amid concerns that entertainment joints and lounges have been flouting COVID-19 restrictions. On most weekends, especially during the end of the month, Kenyans throng bars to enjoy their time. The government's latest directive has not gone down well with those who love their bottle. Here's CGTN's Daniel Arap Moy.
On any given weekend, Nairobi city centre teems with life as happy people spill out of shopping malls and offices straight into bars. But the chatter and laughter that normally fills the bars and streets in this East African capital is no more. The surge in coronavirus cases led the government to reimpose restrictions on bars and entertainment joints. That came after authorities had earlier eased restrictions in an attempt to revive the economy. To many, the prevailing restrictions cannot curb the spread of the virus.
I think the government needs to put proper guidelines on how to prevent the COVID-19, because we've come to realize that the COVID-19 is here to stay. So the government needs to sensitize the public on how to live with the virus, because the country cannot remain locked forever.
Nairobi city centre amid the curfew seems a haunting contrast to its past, with the stillness and quiet a world away from the sounds of music associated with its past nightlife.
African city centres are normally jam-packed with people, but a new reality seems to have taken over as African countries marshal plans to rid the continent of COVID-19.
Business was really promising, and over the years we've had nothing but just good returns out of the business. Yes, but as you are aware, as we all know, that the pandemic has really hit us really hard.
We hope the government will be able to allow us to go back to work, especially like the clubs. We really need to go to work because we depend on our work for our food. It's hand to mouth.
On Saturday, the East African country recorded 23 COVID-19 related deaths with 727 new infections. The death toll rose to 364 by Saturday as the tally of those infected hit over 21,300. The government says the move was necessary because people linger, drink and often have to shout or get closer to each other over blaring music. The East African city is likely to continue missing the usual hordes of beer lovers as COVID-19 strike hard. Daniel Arap Moy, CGTN, Nairobi, Kenya.
And coming up in your sports news. Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang becomes the first African to lead a team to English FA Cup glory.
How would you create your legend? On the fields, on the tracks, in the arenas of Africa. Were you born to be a player? Could this moment be yours? Sports Scene. Find